Also a good question. It would be great to have more trainings for adults. I mean, I think as an adult, there's a couple things. So, I guess to back up and describe our program and what we do, we have students think about an issue they want to work on, and we are intentional about having their issue, the way that they work on it, be policy focused. So, the students pick whatever they want, they think is a problem. So they say, okay, I see homelessness as a problem.
I keep finding heroin needles on my football, soccer, baseball field.
Yes. Okay. So drug use in your community, in your neighborhood. Exactly. So that would be an example of a problem. The way that we encourage students to think about it is not through service or not through raising awareness. So it wouldn't be, all right, I'm going to get a bunch of my friends to go up and pick all the needles. It wouldn't be that. Okay. Or it wouldn't be, let's put posters up around the field saying, don't put your needles here. It wouldn't be that, because those are awareness campaigns. Those are not bad activities to do. There's time and place for those. We want students to think about, what are the policies behind this issue? So why is that happening? Why are users in the football field? Why, maybe backing up a little bit, why is opioid addiction a problem, and why are there so many users in the first place? And so I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, but that's where the research process starts. So that's where the students would talk to, they talk to the opioid task force at the governor's office, and they'd say, what are the policies behind
And you guys give them the resources to have access, because a lot of citizens, Boston residents don't feel like they have access to the governor and to the opioid task force.
Yeah.
So these children, through Generation Citizen, these children have access.
So I actually think that's one of the big myths about civic engagement, is that there is no access. Certainly the governor is not going to answer your call directly. Maybe he will, but probably not him. Charlie Baker is not going to answer your call directly. But what is surprising is that you can pick up the phone and call these offices and get somebody to talk to you at any time, and at some level I'd say 80% of the time when you do that, you'll reach somebody who's actually really excited to talk to you, and it says, oh great, I'm here to answer constituent questions, and I actually sit, it's usually an intern that sits at the desk all day long waiting for people to call.
Waiting for you to call.
Exactly. So there are people, absolutely, who will answer your questions, and then 20% of the time you sort of have to find, they'll be like, oh, it's not us, try these people, and so you have to call again and find the right office. But once you find that right office, there's somebody who's going to be there to answer your questions. And that's really what we facilitate for students. We basically sit them down and say, find the right number to call, and then call and make that connection. And what you'll find, it helps that they're students because they're cute, but even non-cute adults like us can still call, and there are people that want to answer our questions and engage. The other thing to think about is that often there are policies in motion. People have come up with ideas around these different issues, and they need people to support them and lend their weight to them. So, an example is there's police. So talking about police issues, so a lot of our students work on police issues. And so here in Boston, this whole body cam pilot just happened this summer, and now it's in motion. And so if I were to call, for example, Andrea Campbell is the city councilor who's leading the charge on this. If I were to call her office and say, I have a group of students, or call as a student, I'm part of a group of students that wants to do something about police community relations in Boston. What do I do? This gives their office an opportunity to tell me what to do that's actually going to be effective for me and useful for them. They can say, oh, well, we're working this body cam pilot. We do need citizens to call the police commissioner and tell them that they support this pilot and they want it to be prioritized. And so that's one thing that you can do. Versus me, as a group of students, just going out in the street and saying, we need better police relationships, which is fine, but isn't as effective for their purposes because it doesn't push forward something that's already in motion. So there's a little bit, if that makes sense, there's a little bit of a, by connecting to the office, it's in the office's interest because the office is now helping you be really effective and then helping their policy efforts too.
And for those who don't know, when it comes to constituent services, every single phone call is logged. Every single time you call, it is logged. So if you call 17 times, it is logged 17 times. And if for one of those times they don't get back to you, that reflects on their percentage of constituent services relations. So there's a percentage there. How many of these did we close out? How many are still open? And how many do we need to, get to before our percentage comes out? So you are going to receive a phone call from Charlie Baker's office. You are going to receive a phone call from Mayor Marty Walsh's office. And if you're crazy like Tayla and you send Elizabeth Warren emails, you will get a computer-generated response with her little stamp of a signature saying, we apologize. And I've received letters from Elizabeth Warren, from Deval Patrick, and especially if you sign a petition or you write them against, writing a letter, I feel is so much more effective than calling, because even though they have to log every phone call, those letters are in their email, and unlike Hillary Clinton, they're not being deleted. So, write your letter, call. I want all of us to understand that if our babies can be engaged, we can be engaged. If our children can learn in classrooms how to pick up the phone and call the right people to complain to instead of calling your friends or venting on Facebook, we can be the change we wish to become.
Yes, exactly. There's also, I think, it's remarkably few calls that you need, especially when you think about local or state policy. So with Elizabeth Warren, it's a little bit different, but calling the governor's office, calling city council members. I've heard, for example, I was talking to somebody who works at the State House, and they said, if there's a bill that's coming through and I get 7 calls or letters about it, that's enough for me to take notice. Just
Hold on,
a
what?
handful.
Who told you this? Never mind, you can't tell us.
I talk to people who work in government relations and who worked at the State House, and consistently numbers like that come up where it's something like a handful of calls, 7 calls, and they'll say, it doesn't mean that they'll pass that bill, but
7 calls a day. Y'all can't redirect these phone calls and call the mayor instead. This phone line will guarantee before I leave this building will ring more than 7 times. That's
Exactly. Not very many. It doesn't take that much. And, it doesn't mean, again, that they'll pass the bill, but to get a legislator's attention on something, it really doesn't take very much. Just a handful of people, exactly. So, in our case, we have a classroom of students that's 25 students. So if all of them call, that's, 4 times the minimum number that you have.
And if all their parents call,
then it's
50.
even more, exactly. So you can really make a difference just by calling, and I think people are really surprised about that. And they, I think our generation is concerned. The good thing is that younger people are concerned about social issues. They're concerned about problems. They see things as problems. They want to do something about it. I think what that results in often is a lot of social media and awareness raising, which is part of the part of the solution and certainly important. And then a lot of interest in volunteering. A lot of millennials, for example, volunteer at much higher rates than other generations. But there's a sense of frustration. There's a sense that that's not enough, and that at some level these social issues aren't going to change. And I think there's a little bit of a fear when I talk to young people. And I think a big reason for that is that they're not thinking about politics. They're not thinking about, actually, one of the ways that I can really help this issue is to identify specific policy that might address something and then go after it and call my congressperson or call my legislators or call my city council people to try to make change. So I think that's a real big missing piece in social change. That not a lot of people are aware of how easy it is. And I'm not saying politics and government is easy. I'm not saying you make a phone call and then a bill passes and the problem is solved. But that access and getting involved in that process and being able to have a few conversations that really start pushing forward change is not that hard.
So okay, I have many questions here.
Yeah.
My first question. As far as students in alternative ed, because we have a lot of students that are traumatized, that are homeless, that are going through situations that don't permit them to be in BPS any longer, but they're in an alternative ed program. Do you work with alternative ed programs so they too are informed and engaged?
We don't right now. I would love to explore that. So if anybody listening has ideas about how to get connections with,
College Bound.
yeah, exactly, it's how to get connections with college bound and
James
other
Mackey
organizations.
actually said that he would like to partner with you.
Oh.
Hashtag Stuck on Replay, November 5th. Elevating Community's Voice, and this is at the Smith House. So I'll go ahead and give you James Mackey's information, and
Awesome.
go ahead and give James Mackey your information.
So I'm gpressman@generationscitizen.org.
Go ahead and email her, James. And another question that I have. How many classes have you guys infiltrated? And I use that word infiltrate because I feel like civic engagement, it was ripped out of our schools.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we're not even teaching our children proper history. So we are definitely infiltrating these classrooms, trying to stir the pot a little bit and get these children involved, because some of these adults, you just have to give up on. How many classrooms have you guys worked with and partnered with so far?
So here in Massachusetts, we work with just over 3,000 students a year, which is about 120 classrooms. And we've been in Boston since 2009, and this level is the highest we've been, so we've certainly grown. But at this point, 600-700 classrooms in Massachusetts.
600-700 classrooms in Massachusetts, about 120 in Boston.
Yeah, right now, 120 this year. Yeah.
And what capacity do you have? Because we have teachers listening, and I can only imagine that they're going to contact you.
Yeah.
I don't see why they're like, oh, this is dumb. There's no point in this.
Okay, that's
so
good.
if you get 7 calls from 7 teachers today, can you handle that?
Yeah, so our model is we have a curriculum, and that structures this process, that it doesn't say what the issue is or how to work on it, but basically structures how do you think about an issue and how do you think about how to identify a policy solution for that issue. So it's sort of a curriculum that structures the process. And then we provide professional development and coaching and support with some of these partnerships and making connections. And then we, in some cases, depending on the school and what the partner wants, we'll provide a college volunteer to support this. So given that that's what we provide, it's not me going into a classroom teaching the program. So we are fairly scalable in that sense.
Oh, so you guys just created the curriculum. The teachers implement the curriculum if they want the support of a college student.
Exactly.
Where does this? So the money. How much does this cost? What if I wanted to just purchase the curriculum for self so I can learn the civic process and maybe I homeschool my kids?
Yeah. That's something that we haven't figured out yet. That's a really interesting question. So right now we don't license just our curriculum. And I think the reason is that even though the curriculum really structures this and really spells out how to do it, it still is pretty hard to pick up, especially if you're not somebody who's done policy their whole life. So most of our teachers are really aware of social issues and engaged, and often have been active citizens themselves and, called their congresspeople and stuff like that. But still, how do you teach a 7th grader to think beyond, for example, individual behavior and individual choice and think about systemic root causes? How do you teach that to a 7th grader? It's super hard. And so
I would think it would be because they still at that age, they still have their imagination, so everything is possible and nothing is limited. So I would think that it would be easier for them and more difficult with adults.
So some of the concepts, I think you're right. Some of the concepts it is easier because you're right, they have vivid imaginations and they can think about possibilities more. Some of the concepts is hard. So one of the things that I mentioned, we talk to our students about, when you're addressing an issue, you want to think about the systems involved. So it's not about, drug use is a great example. So certainly there's some personal choice involved in that. You made a series of choices that have led you to become a drug user, and those are probably poor choices, and you can improve those choices. So there's certainly that. that's not what we focus on in our program. We focus on what are the systemic factors, because the overprescription of drugs, or the number of services available in your community. What are the systemic things that made it harder for you to make good choices? That's what we focus on in our program. And that concept is actually challenging to teach to students because for a number of reasons. Some of it is just developmental. Some of it too is schools. Schools are all about teaching how to make good individual choices, which makes sense. You want to teach a 7th grader study and work hard and organize and don't get in fights and take care of your family and be a good person. You're teaching individual behavior
that sounds
so
like
much.
some nonsense they should have learned at home.
Yeah.
How to be a good person, how not to get in fights, and
Yeah. Well,
I understand.
Yeah,
I get it.
that's the school. So it's hard to teach. I think pull kids out of it. You'll go to a group of students and you'll say, all right, drug use. We want to take action on drug use, and we'll say, okay, why is this a problem? And the first thing they'll say are these individuals things. They'll say, well, people have made bad choices, and they didn't just say no, and they caved to peer pressure. They'll say all those things. Which certainly might be true, but we want them to think about, again, what are the systems that are behind that. And so we have a structured way to have students think about some of the systems and then start taking action on those. So that's just an example of one of the concepts that we teach, and it reflects that this is sometimes really hard to do. And so our curriculum out of the box, some people can take that and run with it and fine. I think often people need coaching and need ideas, and certainly need partnerships too. So it's about they're able to get people in the classroom to support the process, and so that's kind of what we provide in addition to the curriculum. So that's something that it still makes it really scalable. A teacher could sign up, do the program in their class, they get the curriculum, they get our professional development and our coaching and our support and our help making some of these calls and making some of these connections. And they could still do that, and we'd have the capacity to support them. But I think the next step would be figuring out what would it be like if we just license out the curriculum and just let people have at it, So that's something we're thinking about.
What does this financially look like? Like, as far as, so I'm part of a nonprofit, shout out to Chica Project. But what does this look like financially as far as donations are concerned? Like, how do you guys maintain quarter to quarter? And does anybody get paid? I know you guys have volunteers from colleges and partnerships, but does the curriculum cost? Does the partnership cost? Does, on the office end, you and your staff, like... So yes, it does cost money. We are a nonprofit. It costs to implement a whole class with everything from the curriculum to the coaching and professional development to the college student. The other piece of the program is we organize a field trip at the end of the semester called Civics Day, where we invite representatives from each class to the State House to present their projects, kind of like a science fair. It's super cool. I'll invite you. I'll make sure you're invited. Thank you.
And it's really, really cool and inspiring. So that's sort of another piece of the program. So the whole thing, soup to nuts, is about $3,000. It costs us to run. And some of that is the materials and the field trip expenses. Most of that, honestly, is staff time. So I have me, and then I have a team of program staff that go out and provide the training and the coaching and the structuring of the program. And so how we get that money, we do ask schools to contribute a part of the cost. And honestly, that's less to pay for the program and more so that they're invested and they say, okay, this is something on my books. This is something I've chosen to devote resources to. It's something that I want to support as a school. That makes a big difference. And then the rest is fundraising. So you probably know this from your nonprofit life. You just...
those calls.
Yeah, exactly. Calls and grant applications and meetings and events. We get corporate sponsorships for some of the events that we do. And then it's just it's just the hustle around fundraising.
I know.
So, yeah.
I'm interested in knowing how this would look with a partnership with Stephen Tompkins.
So I'm not familiar with Stephen Tompkins. Tell me about that.
He is the sheriff.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm wondering, what would this look like in jail? Not prison. In local, I have less than 2.5 years jail, and I want to come out and I want to be an active citizen.
Well, so one big big underlying value of our program is that it's action-based, and so it's really about the students in the program learning that they can take action right now. So it's not, for example, okay, you want to do something about drug use, write a paper about how you might change drug use through policy. It's not about that. It's about, let's find a policy, and now let's, in class, we're sitting in class, calling up our legislators, or, depending on what the issue is, planning to do something with the city council or testifying at a hearing. It's like right now, with the idea being that certainly students can make change right away, but also that's how you learn. You got to learn by doing. You can't you can't like write about a science experiment. You have to go to the lab and actually do the science experiment. So I'm fascinated by this idea. First of all, I love the idea. What I think we would have to figure out in partnership, with whoever we're working with, is like what can prisoners do as citizens? I mean, they can certainly write letters to Congresspeople. They can certainly, I don't know if they can make calls, maybe.
I don't know. I was thinking like maybe we could, out of that $3,000, we can pay for some of these phone calls. I don't know.
Right? That's another expense. But I mean, I think it could work. I think there's absolutely advocacy that prisoners can do from prison.
And I think it would work on the recidivism side of like not returning, and I'm trying to get you some grant money, boo.
Oh, okay.
No, but I really think, like, I know that Sheriff Tompkins is really active when it comes to not having these men and women return, and he wants to have them civically engaged. And if he can just purchase this program and have somebody on the inside implement it, we can then tackle not only the youth, but those that are coming back who know about these problems firsthand, because they may have engaged in them, whether it's youth violence, whether it's guns, with like they certainly are experts. I don't know. I mean, brain's just running now.
I love it too. There's so many issues right now with the criminal justice system, and with ex-offenders being there's policies that really are holding back ex-offenders from being integrated into society. And
former incarcerated persons.
Okay, sorry, correct. Yeah, formerly incarcerated persons are having trouble integrating into society, largely because of policies that are holding them back. And so, how are those policies going to be changed? We all as allies can advocate for change around that, and then also activating that population, the formerly incarcerated people, to advocate is going to be huge for that. That's how social change is going to happen. So, yes, that would be great.
If you guys have any questions, please give us a call, 617-282-0062. One more time, where are you from? What do you do? Why are we talking today?
So I'm Jillian Pressman. I'm the Massachusetts Executive Director of Generation Citizen, Action Civics Education.
And as far as Generation Citizen, you said in Massachusetts. Where else are you guys located?
Yeah, so we are in New York City, Rhode Island, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and most recently Central Texas and Oklahoma City.
Texas cares about civics, huh?
They do.
You know that's where all the textbooks come from?
Really? I didn't know that.
College and high school, all the textbooks come out of Texas, and that's who dictates what goes in textbooks as far as history, civics.
That's suspect.
I promise. Do your due diligence. All textbooks come out of Texas. What if we have a listener that's currently in California? You guys service the Bay Area, but they live in Compton.
Yeah, so we've been thinking about that more and more, how we, so ultimately, I guess I would back up and say that our mission as an organization is that every student in the United States gets an action civics education. So we think that this isn't something that's just for those 3,000 students I serve in Massachusetts, or basically across the country. We serve directly about 10,000 students a year. So that's great, right? 10,000 students, that's pretty big for a nonprofit. Not all nonprofits serve that many students, but 10,000 students compared to all the students in the country is like absolutely not even.
What is that? Not even 1%
yet? Not even anything. New York City is interesting. So we serve I think about 3,000 students in New York City too. There's a million school children in New York City public schools.
Serious?
A million, yeah. 1 in every 300 Americans is a New York City public school student. That's how to put it. So that's nuts. And serving 3,000 students is just so inadequate when you think about that. Totally. Just in New York, and this is just in New York City, just in one city.
Wow.
So it puts it in perspective. And so one of the things, we're a pretty young organization. We officially became a nonprofit in 2010. So we're 6 years old at this point. But one of the things that we have built into our mission statement and very much are thinking about is we need to figure out how all students can get action civics. And we can certainly grow our program. And so we're thinking about new regions to open in. Certainly, like I said, here in Massachusetts, if local teachers are not currently doing the program but are interested, we're interested in working with them and expanding to their school.
Charter schools.
We work with charter schools, yeah.
Okay.
We work with a couple charter schools. We work with a couple parochial schools, yeah, and we're open to that too and interested in that.
Homeschooling.
Not yet, but
if a parent is interested in contributing to the $3,000, as would a school, could the same resources be afforded?
I think so, for sure. With homeschooling, so one of the big pieces of the program is that students learn that change happens collaboratively and that they have to work, I like to use the snowflake story. For every student, every young person, every person is a snowflake, is a special snowflake, and we're all unique individuals. But one snowflake is not going to stop traffic. You need to have all your snowflakes bond together to actually stop traffic. And so, or create a snowman, or
you're still going to school.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's, I think, a big lesson of the program is you need to work together. So, for example, at the start of our program, when the students figure out what issue they want to work on, they can't just each choose their own issue or split up into groups. They actually have to, as a class, use a consensus process to all agree on one issue. So, and that can be tricky to all 25 kids come to consensus on one thing, but it's a valuable experience to learn that in itself. And what it drives home is that we really need to work together on something. We're not going to be able to make change just as individuals or small groups. So with homeschooling, I think it'd be interesting to figure out how to build that in. Certainly if it were, a sort of homeschool where it's like a bunch of families come together to school their children so that they're in one classroom together, that would be a little different. If it was like, I'm a parent, I have one child, and I'm homeschooling my son, I think we'd have to think creatively about how he can connect to other young people to be able to work in a group to make the change, because it has to be a group project. So, but I don't think it's impossible, and I really like that. I think homeschooled children are citizens too, and they also need to learn this.
So again, creative juices just flowing. The sunrise is absolutely beautiful if you're currently on the road, or not. It's sunrise, good rising, waking up with TaylaAndre, Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. We are in the building with Generation Citizen, and we are discussing how we can be more engaging civically, starting with our young people. So again, creative juices flowing. What if 10 parents, 15, 17 kids, through these 10 parents, come together and say, listen, we are civically engaged already. We just would like to go through the proper channels, or we really understand and love your curriculum. We 10 parents may not homeschool, but want to use this to supplement for our kids.
Yeah.
Does that exist yet?
Not
if
yet.
Not, can we create it?
Not yet. And yes, probably fairly easily.
Yours are flexible. I like this.
Well,
I'm like, can we do it on the moon? Possibly, Tayla. We might be able to do that.
I'm open to that. I'm open to moon citizens. Yeah. So like I said, we're young, so we haven't done all the flexible things that we want to do yet. But built into our mission and our belief that really this needs to reach all U.S. young people, and the next step would be globally. So we're starting to think about how this might work in other countries and how we can empower other citizens. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So thinking
But
about
speaking it into existence, absolutely, I'm with you on that.
yeah. So basically, what that means is we have this big mission statement about all U.S. young people. We have our current program, which serves 10,000 students, and we're very interested in connecting, getting from point A to point B. So we're very interested in thinking about how we can license out our curriculum, how we can do sort of a consultancy model where maybe we work with a group of parents and here's some of the frameworks. We'll teach you guys how to do this, and then you can implement. We're very interested we're getting involved in policy work too. We're working with the state. The state has in Massachusetts, a civic learning working group. So we're at the table for that and thinking about how can we make action civics available for districts across the state in different ways. So we're starting to think about what are some of these models. And right now it's sort of like on an individual basis. I think we're open to working with people and talking to people and figuring this out and strategizing this. And then eventually, if I come back on the show in 5 years, at your 8th anniversary, I will say, oh, okay, this is our homeschool model. And, hopefully we'll be able to refine these and so that,
so I speak it to existence, we can do it in less than 5 years.
Yeah, you're right. 5.
And for those who don't know, today is the day that LinkedIn reminded me that it's the 3-year anniversary. Technically, October 22nd, 23rd-ish. No, I'm lying. Actually, today is the day. The 19th was the first day of the show 3 years ago. Wow. And I've just been altering the days as we've gone. I'm excited for this program. I'm excited for this model. What I think would be really interested is to see this, the program implemented in like a Lawrence or New Bedford, where there's a strong undocumented citizens.
Yeah.
And for them to work on like immigration policy. Like I wonder what would that look like, especially with the children and those. I want to give a shout out to Andrea James because Andrea James said that Andrea James is a recidivism, incarcerated persons activist, and she said something that has stuck with me for years when she said that the people behind bars are the true experts. Like we can have all these experts on stage, but the true experts are those that have lived it already.
Totally.
And I think when it comes to our issues, we always are questioning the experts that have no experience and what they're an expert in, just a whole bunch of book knowledge. And it would be nice to see what experts as far as like immigration policy and having the undocumented persons actually be a part of that conversation.
Totally. And that actually, that philosophy and that belief underlies a lot of what we do in thinking about young people. And there's so many issues that affect young people regarding education, regarding public transit, and young people are the experts on those issues, and they're not involved in the process. Legally, they're not allowed to vote. And often legally, and then also culturally, I think young people's views are often dismissed, and so that's a big philosophy of our program is that young people are the experts on the issues that affect them, and so let's make sure that they're engaged and they're part of the process starting right away. So yes, I agree with that. On the immigrants, so I totally agree with you. We don't yet have partnerships in Lawrence and New Bedford, but I think they're on our list in thinking about partnerships. We did last year expand to Lowell, and with Lowell it's been awesome. It's been a really, really rewarding partnership. We started last year in, I think, 5 or 6 classrooms at the high school and have now expanded this year so that we're serving basically all their students. So we're not serving all their students at once, but we're saturated so that every student, if you go to Lowell High School, you'll get Generation Citizens on Play. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, it is. It's really cool. And one of the reasons that the district was interested in partnering with us is exactly that. They recognize that Lowell has, in its whole history, been sort of the first entry point for so many immigrants coming to America, and being in Lowell and learning through their time there what it means to be an American and what it means to be a U.S. citizen, and the freedom and opportunity and responsibility to participate in democracy is a big piece of that. And so the school district was very interested in how can we make sure that, you know, kids and their families are coming here and are engaged and are learning how to get connected. So, you know, Lowell has a big Cambodian population, for example, and out of Lowell, you know, and I think gradually there's some local community organizations that have engaged that population, and you know, out of Lowell has come our Ratty Mom, who's our Cambodian state representative, you know, the highest office held by a Cambodian in America, you know, and that came out of Lowell.
Really?
So yeah, so that's an example of, you know, the community has really been a gateway to American democracy, and I think the school sees us as part of that. So, you know, young people come, often English language learners, they don't speak English as fluently as they would want to, and they come through our program and learn about action civics and learn about the local players, and that they can get involved and then continue to stay engaged and then transmit that to their families. That's kind of the vision in Lowell. So that's something that has been really exciting to watch, and we're hoping to expand to other communities in Massachusetts similarly. I would say on the immigration, one of the things that we highlight is that students should focus on local and state policy and not yet national policy. There's a few reasons for that.
You gotta walk before you crawl? I mean, you gotta crawl before you walk?
Yes, exactly. That's the big reason. And that, you know, policy is a long process and it takes relationships, and you're going to be able to build relationships at the local and state level easier. And often the issues, I think people don't recognize this, especially now that it's election season and people think like the life or death of this country is based on which of these two candidates are going to win. Which, you know, there's some truth to that. The president is important, but, you know, a lot of the daily issues that affect how I get to work and what I can, you know, what I can eat on the way to work and what I'm listening to on the radio and what, you know, there's so many daily things in my life that actually are affected by local and state policy pretty significantly. And so that, I think, people don't appreciate often, and so that's what we teach our students, is focusing on local and state. And so with immigration, you know, a lot of the policies are determined on a federal level, but there's often sort of pieces of the pieces of the issue that happen in local states. So, for example, our students in Lowell worked on cultural competency training in their school. You know, so they said immigrants come here, they may be constrained by federal immigration policy in coming here, but once they do come here, we don't think that they're integrated well into the school. We don't think that they're treated with respect by everybody.
And the children did this.
Yeah, so they advocated in their school to, they created an anti-bias task force at the school. They
anti-bias task force.
Yeah.
And a cultural competency.
Yes, exactly.
Course for the educators and administrators.
Yes.
Who are these children?
They're young people who are the experts on this issue. They see how it plays out, and they've taken action.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I think would be amazing is if we are able to do some, I don't want to invite like 4 and then have 21 wonder why not me. So maybe we can do a classroom, like I can go to a classroom and talk with the young people, and maybe we can Facebook Live it.
Cool.
And then talk about it on air the day after. I'm open if you're open on that. So as far as Generation Citizen, I'm a teacher. I can contact you and tell you I want you to come to my class.
Yes, and no guarantees that we'll be able to meet all your needs, but I think we're very open to conversations, yeah. And similarly with parents too. Parents, again, we don't have like a, you know, action civics at home guidebook yet. We don't have that. But as a parent,
I can call and say, I want you guys to do some type of partnership with my school.
Yeah, we can start the conversation for sure.
16-year-old is currently listening, like, I want this in
Awesome.
my school.
I would love that. 16-year-olds, yes, definitely. Yes.
So anybody can call and say, can you start the conversation for me with my school?
Yeah, exactly.
And what number do they call? Or how do they reach you?
So email is best. gpressman@generationscitizen.org is the best. And if you didn't hear any of that, you can go to our website, generationscitizen.org, and it's pretty easy to find my contact information or any of my staff members' contact information. But you can go through me, and then I'll connect you to the right person if it's not me. So.
Oh, you sound like the constituent services.
Yeah,
if it's not
right?
me, it's somebody else.
Right? Exactly.
So what is stopping you, or what is hindering the organization from just being implemented in every classroom, 7th through 12th?
So schools and teachers and administrators are under tremendous, tremendous pressures to get a lot of things done. And education policy is very, very hairy. And they don't have unlimited time for civics, unfortunately.
That's insane.
So.
Like, that is the, I know that's your response, but that is no excuses.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, we work closely with the BPS district. And so one of the things that we've been talking to them about is how to just enhance civics overall and make sure that all BPS students are getting civics, regardless of whether it comes directly through us or through another provider, but we've been working on that. And one of the things that they said that was interesting is they said that they have, each department has recommendations for how much time should be spent in that subject. So how much time should be spent in English, how much time should be spent in math. And when you add all those up, it's like way more than the school day.
I know, because they get out at 2:25.
I mean, that is a question. What is the length of the school day, and should it change? Although that brings up the teachers' contracts and all this sort of stuff.
Which shouldn't even be a conversation, because if it's truly about the babies, then it's not about your paycheck, and it's about teaching these kids depending on what type of teacher you want to be. Now, I know that there's teachers that are mad at me right now, but there are more teachers that call me, that email me, that message me about thank you, Tayla, than they do go to hell, Tayla. So there's a lot of teachers out here. If this is something that you're interested in, if this is something that you want to bring to your students, if this is, you don't have enough time in the day, but you want to stop teaching about Christopher Columbus and teach about something that these children may have abilities to alter, then I urge you to call or to go to generationcitizen.org or email at
gpressman@generationscitizen.org.
We didn't have any questions. I guess I asked all the right questions today. But is there anything that I missed that you want to tell the listeners about the organization or about civics, anything?
Yeah. Let's see. There's so much.
Today's the last day you can register to vote.
Yes, remember that. I think there's also, this election is interesting because there's all this, obviously the presidential election is taking center stage, but there's some really interesting ballot initiatives that are happening this year in Massachusetts. An example of how, and even in Boston, even the Boston specific elections. And so make sure if you're a teacher that you're talking to your students about those and getting their opinions about those, because I think there's some really interesting debates. But I guess I would say, what do students, and I've talked a lot about why this matters for our communities and for our democracy ultimately, and I know Tayla really gets that. What do students get out of this experience? I think so the reason I joined Generation Citizen is I was working at another education nonprofit and connecting with students individually, and I just recognized that so much of success in life isn't always about the raw skills. Isn't always about reading and writing and math. It's really about what's underneath that and what's driving you as a learner and as a citizen. And for me, for example, I thought about I did pretty well in school. I went to a great college, and how did I get there? I got there because I just have always been a pushy person, and I've always been like, I want that, and like, oh, there's a summer program, I want to do it, and oh, there's this like special opportunity to go to a weekend conference, like I want to go, and I just always raise my hand for everything, and I don't think young people do that enough. I think they don't, and it's not because they're not capable, it's because they don't believe that they have a right to those things. They think that those opportunities are for other people and they're not for me because I'm this or I'm that or I'm not good enough or whatever it is. And I think civics is a really, really powerful way to change that narrative, because now you have whoever you are, you're standing in front of a city council person and you're making an argument about something that matters to you, and like Tayla pointed out, something that actually you're an expert on way more than the city councilor because you are a young person. And I think that's a really, really powerful experience. And so if nothing else, even if it doesn't work, even if you ask for something that just isn't going to happen politically, that experience for a young person is so transformative, and I think we owe it to all our young people that we try to put them in front of their city councilors and give them a chance to do that. So that's one of the things that I love about civics, thinking about the impact on an individual student.
I think that's amazing. I am compelled to ask a question. A lot of our students don't feel as if they can raise their hand and say, I want that. Like you said, they don't feel as if they have that privilege. Without Generation Citizen, how can we make people, the listeners, their friends, their family members, feel as if their voice does matter? When you look at this presidential election and you're like, I would not have liked either one of these candidates to have even been candidates, let alone president. My voice doesn't matter. I'm not voting. Without the organization, out the box thinking, how do we get adults that currently can vote instead of waiting 10 years for those that we're teaching to vote? What can I do to get people to think about, having that privilege? It's not a privilege. It's a right. You're a citizen. You have every right to say, listen, my tax dollars pay you. This is what I want. This is what I need. Act accordingly. Or at least take the steps to make me think you're acting accordingly.
Yeah, so definitely start paying attention. I would encourage you to start paying attention to, if you're not already, to local policies and what's happening on the local level. Even things like, a new development is going up, or a new something is being built, or whatever. Those agencies that build those are required to have community meetings and community hearings. And as you can imagine, there's not a lot of young people at those meetings
ever,
and they're not necessarily. It's usually the same people who go every time. And so those meetings, those open meetings to talk about things that are happening in the community, you can go to those. The school committee has open meetings. The city council has public hearings for different things. You can subscribe to the city council. The Boston.gov has been revamped and it's great. And there's ways to go on and kind of subscribe to the newsletters to see what's happening in Boston, or if you're not in Boston, your local community. See what's happening, and there's a lot of opportunities to give community input, and I guarantee if you go and speak your mind, you will be heard and be in a forum where there's not a lot of other people, and so you can really make an impact that way. And what you'll find is that you don't have to even be a voter, so that's why we send our kids to these things. They can't, some of them are undocumented, and all of them are underage. But you can still speak up and say, I'm concerned about this, or I want this to happen in the community, and it can be very powerful, and it can really make a difference on the specific issue, for sure. The other thing that I would just highlight, too, is that, government leaders are people just like us, and they often, I think 99.99% of the time, they really have good intentions and are there for the right reason because they care about the community and they care about you, but they're operating under all the constraints of being in politics and all the different people that they have to please. So one thing that I would also highlight is when you do talk to leaders, try to work with them and not work against them. So it's really about saying, this is what I'm concerned about, this is what I see as wanting to change. What are some solutions? How can we make this work? What can I do? How can we make this happen? Versus saying, you guys don't care about us, and you suck, and blah blah blah. Because I think that type of dialogue, first of all, doesn't work, and second of all, it will make you feel unempowered because it's not going to work. So go into it. So show up. And number one, if you don't remember anything else that I said, just remember this: like, show up to local meetings and go. And then when you speak, consider thinking of government as collaborators, because they are, and you can work together to make change in everywhere. I've seen it happen with if our seventh graders can do it, then anybody listening right now can do it.
I think that's beautiful. So Levon, last question. Levon asked, once again, are they teaching United Nations Declaration Rights of a Child and the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights as civic based?
So that's interesting. So we actually don't use those frameworks in our class specifically. I'm sure I'm not super familiar with them, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that are talked about regarding rights in those documents that we do talk about and that we do highlight. I'm sure the principles are aligned, but we don't actually use those specifically.
Language.
Yeah.
Okay, Levon, let's inbox each other because I have questions about this. He said, you are nationals, not citizens. There is a huge difference between a citizen, a non-citizen, a private citizen, and a national. That's why I'm asking, are they teaching the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights and the United Nations Declaration of a Child? So this is something that I am not informed of and would love to learn more. So Levon, can we please hit me in the inbox? Can you slide in my DM?
Yeah. One thing I would point out with that question, it's a great point that was raised. So we're called Generation Citizen. We define citizen in the beginning of our program and use citizen in the broadest sense. So it's not, you don't need to be documented. We're not citizen in the legal sense. We're citizen in the broadest sense of a community member. And so I would want to highlight that's what we're talking about. We're trying to build a generation of people who are community minded and are thinking about themselves. And I actually had a meeting. We had a meeting with Saval Patrick yesterday, who's great and amazing. And we asked him to define citizen, and he said, I'm going to get this wrong, but he said it is somebody who is well informed and engaged and an aspirational member of a community, and they're someone who their success is tied up in their neighbors' dreams and struggles as much as their own dreams and struggles, which I thought was great and very eloquent and speaks to it's about building young people who are thinking about the community and thinking beyond themselves, and that's what we mean by citizen, not any of the legal stuff. So
I got
would
you.
highlight that, yeah.
I got you. Let's contact Deval Patrick. Let's go to Bain Capital and see if we can go have a conversation with him. I am so appreciative. GenerationCitizen.org. Please go to the website. It is absolutely amazing. You'll learn a lot there, and you can see the curriculum from community issues to focus issues to root cause, and then working on the goal, the targets, and the tactics. I think it's a wonderful program, and I wish it could be implemented in all of our classrooms because our children definitely need to understand how this system works and how they can engage in the system. And it sounds a little revolutionary, but control, take over, use the system the best way they can to make changes. I want to thank you so much for coming in this early rising. I want to say that you are very much informed. And I have to say, how much do you work out? Because you have guns.
Oh, yeah. I do CrossFit. I work out a lot. If anyone wants to talk to me about CrossFit, I get awesome. I will talk about CrossFit all day, too. So, I love it, yeah.
Your gun, your arms are ridiculous. You could really knock somebody out with those things. She's like, yeah, I know. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to take a break because the Wake Up with TaylaAndre show is over, but the Good Life Morning show will begin soon, and I will be in the building with Hot Sauce and O'Neill. So please stay tuned or stick with us. I'm going to play this hashtag No Dabble again just because I love Stuart James so much, and it's Stuart James with a U-A and not the W one. So please check out Stuart James. Understand what's going on in North Dakota. understand what's going on with hashtag no dapple, understand what's going on with hashtag Standing Rock, because this affects us as much as it affects the indigenous population. And the truth of the matter, baby, is you're indigenous too, so you should care about these things. But I understand if you don't, because it's unfortunate, but you just don't know. Again, thank you, love you, appreciate you. Stuart James, hashtag no dapple, generationcitizen.org. And we're not going to give the email again. Just go to the website, do your due diligence. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're an administrator, anybody, a student, if you're a 15-year-old currently listening, you're like, Mom, I'd really like for that to be in my classroom. Come on, let's work together. Let's get it in the class. Let's do it. We can do it. Ain't got time to do it right. I want to give a huge shout out. Don't forget that Face Naturals now has her own building, 66A South Street, and that is right down the street from Forest Hills. This rising, I used something for the first time. It's called the Aphrodisiac oil. She has a body scrub, she has the oil, and she has the spritz. And I don't know what the hell is in this, but it smells like Freaky Friday. It really does. Don't forget the Pom Pom Wash, and now the Buddy Wash has been released. The Buddy Wash exists, the Pom Pom Wash exists. Please go to 66 South Street. There's a big pink door. You can't miss it. I want to give a huge shout out to Miss Stacy Jackson, who has a cleaning company. If you need your house cleaned, if you need your classroom cleaned, if you need your residential, your event, your commercial, tell her TaylaAndre sent you. You'll get $5 off your next cleaning. Or you could just go to independentcleaningcrew.com, independentcleaningcrew.com. She has created an all-purpose cleaner, a glass cleaner, toilet bombs, a softer scrub. They come in spearmint, myrrh, orange, cinnamon clove, lemongrass, and it's all natural. All natural. And extensive research has gone into making these products. She uses nothing but non-toxic, biodegradable, all-natural ingredients. And she only uses pure essential oils to fragrance any of her products. That is independentcleaningcrew.com. Go to her website. Fees, I believe, are like $50 an hour, which is really good because most cleaning companies charge you $125 an hour. I love it. Don't forget Couples Therapy, 722 Dudley Street. 722 Dudley Street. They have amazing prices. They're right in your neighborhood. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. She is open until 10 p.m. So you don't have to go to the mall. Go straight to 722 Dudley Street. And shout out to Reggie B. Work to Do, because he definitely is getting work done. I have seen flyers for Prentice Powell Saturday, November 19th all over the city. 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Doors open at 6 p.m. Tickets will not be sold at the door because it's located at Lena Park Community Corporation, and they cannot sell tickets at the door. But you can come see me in my car in the parking lot. And I said, no, I really can't sell you tickets. But please get your tickets immediately now. Prentice Powell was on the Wake Up with TaylaAndre show about 18 months ago. We're going to have him back. He was also recently on the Arsenio Hall show, prior to that being shut down, but you know how it is. Don't forget to come see me Friday, ZC Boston, your favorite bartender. I thank you. I love you and appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day, darling.
Way it is right now with us, with the water situation, is because anything can happen.
That was amazing. I didn't know you guys did all that. Y'all don't have any questions other than Rod or Constitution of IRS?
We're talking about law. We're talking about respect.
One step at a time, Ron. One step at a time. We're trying to teach the baby something. But with all that being said, look at this.
You've never dealt with this honorably, United States, ever. And it's time that you start doing so, because
I'm so lucky I get to see this beauty every day.
The problem for the Indian people are within the United States government. The problem we're having is the federal government.
I'm going to go ahead and let my phone charge. I am co-hosting the Good Life Morning Show, so we're going to have another live probably as soon as the email gets here. We're going to have another live until 10 a.m. So I look forward to seeing you guys once again. Mwah. I have a lot of news. A lot of news, and I transferred. They said it. talking about the news twice.
We don't
We just skipped the news
we
today.
want to be able to hang on to it because the federal government said
And,
we keep this much and we keep that much.
Take a picture of it. I'll take a picture of it and post it. Instead of giving the news twice, I just canceled out my news today and figured we'll just cover it on the morning show. Thank you, love you, appreciate you. You guys have an amazing day. And I'll take that picture and post it. Can we take a picture really quickly? And you guys will have access to it. It's currently, well, it will be on YouTube, under my YouTube channel. Roxbury against gentrification, boo. All day. Can they see it? Choose to think a stand. Then it will desecrate the land.